Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Okay. First question. Is it permitted for women to visit graveyards? So, brief answer, yes, it is. It is permissible for women to visit graveyards. However, it's important that when women visit graveyards, they're not visiting graveyards for the purpose of renewing their grief. Rather, they're visiting graveyards for the purpose of remembering mortality, that we too have to leave this world. So similar to how men visit graveyards. I mean, they don't visit graveyards to renew their grief and to express sorrow at whatever loss they have suffered. So it's permissible for women to visit graveyards. There's nothing wrong with it. It's better to go at a time when non-mahram men are not present. The prohibition that comes in the hadith, this prohibition was because, and it was due to women engaging in something called no. It's called no, which means it's that kind of expression of grief that in those days, this was the pre-Islamic Arabs. So the pre-Islamic Arabs, when they would express grief, specifically the women, they would say things like, "Oh, my mountain has died. My mountain has passed," or they would say something like, "Oh, what am I going to do? My rizq is gone. My sustenance is gone." So they would say ridiculous things like that. So this is called no, and then they would slap their faces and they would tear their clothing. This is all part of no. So the Prophet ﷺ, and they would specifically go to the graveyards to do exactly this, to express grief in this way. So the Prophet of Allah, he prohibited the women from doing that. After that, Rasulullah ﷺ said in a hadith that kuntu nahaytukum an ziyaratil qubur ala fazuruha. So the Prophet ﷺ, addressing the women sahabiyat, said that I used to tell you and I used to prohibit you from visiting the graveyards. And the background of this prohibition was because the women of that time, they would engage in this noha, right, which is expression of grief in the manner that I just highlighted and explained. So this is impermissible. It's not permissible to express our grief like that. After Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was a muallim. He was a teacher. So after the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught the Sahaba, he allowed them. He allowed the Sahabiyat. He allowed the female Sahabiyat, the female Sahaba, to go and visit the graves. Hence, Aisha radiallahu anha, she would visit her brother. Aisha radiallahu anha, she would visit her brother. Fatima radiallahu anha, she would go and visit the grave of Hamza radiallahu anh at Uhud. So it's permissible for women to visit graveyards, again, not for the purpose of renewing their grief, but for the sole purpose of remembering that we too have to leave these mortal planes, and we will have to stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we will be questioned about whatever we did in our graves. So this is something that if we go to the graveyards to remind ourselves of this, to remind ourselves that these worldly planes are temporary, then there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with women visiting graveyards. Okay, second question. I lost my slippers in the haram. Is it permissible for me to use someone else's slippers? Okay, Dr. So I'm gonna get to your question in a minute. Let me just respond to this one. So losing slippers in the haram. Losing sisters. I'm sorry about that. Okay, so someone lost their slippers in the haram, right? Now this happens. This probably happened to a lot of us, where we lost our slippers. I mean, I know it happened to me, but with in my case, what had happened was that I had some Timberland sleep those Timberland sandals, and I had placed them in a bag, and I placed them in a location which was away from any kind of prying eyes. But alas, when I returned, they were nowhere to be found. They were nowhere to be seen. So I lost my Timberland chappals, my sandals. Now there are a lot of slippers that people just they just leave over there. Usually it's the flip flops or the bathroom slippers, I like to call them, because usually people use them in the bathrooms. So they just leave them over there, and they think that what, if something happens to them, then I can just take someone else's slippers. First and foremost, um, there's a famous axiom in Arabic, which is ad-darar la yazalu bimithlihi, that harm, it is not eradicated, it is not removed by uh, by a similar harm. So if you lose your slippers over there for whatever reason, someone stole your slippers, you can't go around taking someone else's slippers. You can't go and say that, okay, you know what, my slippers are lost, so now all the slippers, they belong to me, they're mubah, and they're permissible for me to use. If everybody operates with this kind of mentality, I don't think the slippers that we come back with, most likely they're not even going to be our slippers. And furthermore, how is our umrah going to be accepted? All of our acts of worship, when we're walking around with someone else's slippers, how is our acts of worship, our acts of devotion, how are they going to be accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So when we lose our, first and foremost, when we go to the haram, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala take all of us again for umrah, for hajj, for whatever. Remember that, make sure you have like a knapsack or something. Nowadays they have so many different types of bags. So just get one of those Nike bags. They probably cost like $5, $6, maximum $10, and sling it on your shoulders. Put your slippers in there. Put your chappals in there. Put your sandals in there. I mean, whatever you're wearing, just put them in that bag and just walk around with that bag. No one is going to take that bag. So in this way, it protects your slippers, it protects your belongings, and then you don't have to think about taking someone else's slippers. Think that what, this is male ghanimat. this is spoils of war. I lost my slippers, and Hajj and Umrah, it's like you're constantly pushing and shoving. I mean, you shouldn't be pushing and shoving, but sometimes it does happen where you involuntarily, because someone pushes you from the back, so you push the guy in front of you. So then people have this mentality that okay, if my slippers are lost, spoils of war, I'm going to take someone else's slippers, and it's all good. So he's doing all of his acts of devotion. This guy's doing all of his acts of devotion and stolen slippers, using someone else's slippers. So it's not permissible. I mean, the short of it, it's not permissible. Be very careful. Don't take someone else's slippers. Just buy some new slippers. And flip flops, they probably cost like 2-3 riyals over there. Okay, so all right, Dr. Sab, let's see. Where does the 3 times using shovels or otherwise of placing dirt on the grave per person during the burial come from? It's from the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It comes from Hadith. So everything is established from Hadith. I mean, whatever we do, it has to be established from Hadith, from the prophetic Sunnah, from the prophetic practices of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this was the method of how they would bury. In the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they would start with by taking one handful of dirt, and they would recite minha khalaqnakum, that we were created from this, we were created from the dirt. Wa fiha nu'idukum, and they would take a second one. And this is recorded. The Sahaba, they're recording the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's practice. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would say that minha khalaqnakum, take one. They would take one fistful of dirt and throw it into the grave. And wafiha nu'idukum, second fistful, and from this we are going to return. and from this we're returning to it. وَمِنْهَا نُخْرِجُكُمْ تَارَةً أُخْرَى. And the third time the Prophet ﷺ would take a fistful of dirt and throw it into the grave, and he would say, and from this we will be resurrected on the day of Qiyamah. So it comes from hadith. So it's from the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. It's a good sunnah to practice. It's from the mustahabbat. Anything that we do, even something as easy as covering a grave, putting the soil back, putting the dirt back into a grave. If we do it in accordance to the sunnah, then that act, it becomes a praiseworthy and a virtuous act. And when we infuse that act with the sunnah, what happens is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rewards that act of devotion. Okay, is it permissible for women to be involved in the burial? I mean, if there's no men around, then that's a different story. But generally, no. Women are not supposed to be involved in the actual burial process. Yes, if there are no men and only women are present, then that's a different matter entirely. But it's not mentioned anywhere that women, they were ever involved in the burial process. I have yet to come across anything clear where it allows women to be part of the burial process. I guess the reason being is that satar cannot be maintained, and generally women should not be involved in doing tasks that require labor, something like taking dirt and putting it into the ground. So this is an honor. This is just honor for women, that they should not be involved. The Sharia has not asked women to be responsible for covering the grave up and filling it up with dirt after burial. So as far as permissibility is concerned, I would say that it is makruh. It's abhorrent. It's better for women to stay away until the burial is done. After that, yes, by all means, once the burial is complete, then recite Quran. It is from the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. It comes in hadith as well that Surah Yasin can be recited, as well as at the head of the mayyit, at the head of the deceased, one recites the first ruku of Alif Lam Mim, Surah Al-Baqarah, and at the feet, Lillahi ma fi samawati ma fil ard, the last ruku of Surah Al-Baqarah. So this comes in hadith, specifically in the Azkar of Imam Nawawi. This is where this is mentioned. Yeah, you should have gotten Bata chappals instead of Timberland. Yeah, I did have some Bata chappals from Pakistan, but I think the quality now is lacking. So Timberlands, they were better at the time. Inshallah, next time I go to Pakistan, I'll get some Bata chappals. But I think they're better chappals in Pakistan these days. Hush puppies and these other chappals over there. So many different types of companies. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so I gave 3 talaqs at one time. My intent was that the second and third talaqs were for emphasis. I remember when I was studying in Darul Ifta, some people, they just ajib, very peculiar people. So this guy, and this is like etched in my head. So this guy comes to the mufti who's sitting in the Darul Ifta. So he asks that Mufti sahab, मैंने अपनी बीवी को बोला है कि आपको एक साफ सुथरी तलाक. You get what I'm saying? So Mufti sahab, मैंने अपनी बीवी को बोला कि आपको एक साफ सुथरी तलाक. So Mufti sahab, he was kind of a jovial guy, very interesting personality. So he said that आपकी एक साफ सुथरी तलाक वाक़े हो गई. I mean, it's nothing to laugh at. I'm sorry, but the thing is that when it comes to talaq, we have to realize by now that this is a very abhorrent thing. Why even discuss something like talaq? I mean, it should not even be discussed. So especially when the whole 3 talaq thing, first and foremost, 3 talaqs is is equal to it's equal to three. Three is three. So if a person gives three talaqs at one time and his intent is three, then three talaqs are, I mean, that's it. It's game over once three talaqs are issued. However, if a person gives three talaq and his intent is that, let me solidify the first talaq, that okay, talaq, and then he goes talaq and talaq, and that the second and third talaq were for emphasis, just to kind of solidify the first talaq, then yes, that would be considered as one. But why even go that route? I mean, what's the reason to even say the second and third? I mean, there's no reason behind it. I mean, this is the abghadul halal. This is the most abhorrent thing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is permissible. And it's only permissible if the husband and wife, they can't maintain the laws, and they can't uphold the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is when it's permissible. Otherwise, talaq it's a very abhorrent thing. This is something that we should refrain from. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anh, once someone comes to him, comes to Ibn Abbas radiallahu anh, and he says that Ibn Abbas, answer me this question. I gave my wife 100 talaqs. I gave my wife 100 talaqs. So Ibn Abbas, he just looks at him, he gets angry, and he reprimands him, he admonishes him, and then he says that you come crying to me after you have given 100 talaqs. So go away from here. The three talaqs, right? From the 100, the three that you gave, they are now applied. They are now applied. And the remainder 97, they're all laghaw, meaning that they're all they're not given any kind of consideration. But as I said, talaq is not a small issue. This is a very the purpose of marriage, and usually I mention this whenever I conduct a marriage. When I do premarital counseling, I let the couple know that, look, the objective of marriage is ta'bid. Right? This is why people go into marriage. The asal of marriage, the default position of marriage is ta'bid. It's so that it lasts forever until it's basically till death do us part. That's what it is. This is what ta'bid is, that it should last forever. One should not go into the marriage with the intention that, after 10, 15 years, I'm going to get tired. Yeah. You know what? I'm out. That's it. I'm not. I can't stay married any longer. Right? I mean, this is kind of like what the Americans do. That I stopped loving her, or I stopped loving him. What kind of nonsense is this? I stopped loving him. I stopped loving her. I mean, Islam looks at compatibility. Right? This is what Islam looks at. Islam looks at compatibility, and this is just pathetic to me when people say that, I stopped loving my wife, or I stopped loving my husband, and that's why I want out. I want out of this relationship. I mean, is love something that's quantified? I mean, can you count it? What is this? What is this love? I don't understand when people say things like this. Yes, it's a good thing. Yes, we should have that relationship with our spouse. And love is something that comes automatically when a person gets married. This is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions this in the Quran, that Allah himself has placed muhabba, Allah himself has placed love in the marriage. So when a person and when a man and woman, when they go into the marriage, they should go with the intention that the command of Allah and the default position of marriage is that it's ta'bid. It's that it lasts forever, basically till death do us part. Okay, is it permissible for me to take flu vaccination every year? I heard that flu vaccination, it has porcine enzymes. I don't know about this. As far as flu vaccination is concerned and what kind of ingredients they use, I mean, this is something that you should probably, ask a physician. I mean, they would probably know most likely what kind of ingredients they're putting in, what kind of cocktail is inside that syringe. I have no idea what they're putting in flu vaccination. I mean, it's kind of disgusting if they're using porcine enzymes in a flu vaccine. Another issue is that, I mean, are those enzymes, when we say porcine enzymes, I mean, have they been denatured? I mean, that's another question as well. Have they undergone istihala? I've mentioned this in one of my previous Q&As. Istihala and denaturation is when something is chemically altered into something else completely. So wine turning into vinegar, right? Wine turning into vinegar. I mean, wine is haram, right? Wine is categorically haram. It's explicitly haram. But when it turns into vinegar, it's halal, right? So if porcine enzymes, they're used as an ingredient in the flu vaccination, and that enzyme has been denatured, meaning you could call it something else. It's no longer you can't really call it an enzyme from the body part of a pig. So then it would be okay. Then there would be no issue. But again, this is not something I'm an expert in. It's better to ask. It's better to ask physicians who are administering the flu vaccine every year. Okay, where do women place their hands in salah? Uh, so according to the Hanafi and Shafi madhab, the women will place their hands on their chest. They will place their hand in salah on their chest. So this is the position, and this is what is recorded in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, that women, they would place their hands on their chests, and this is what Rasulullah ﷺ has mentioned. There may be a difference of opinion on this, but this is what is the predominant opinion, that the placement is on the chest. Okay, Mufti Sahib, I broke multiple fasts in the month of Ramadan. Oh my God. How many kafaras do I have to keep? Okay, so if a person is fasting and he purposefully, intentionally breaks his fast in Ramadan, right? Technically, he has to do kafara for each fast that's broken. Having said that, there is dispensation that he just gives one kafara. So one kafara is fasting 60 days, which is impossible. So let's just go to the second tier. So second tier is that he gives he feeds 60 people, or he feeds one person twice a day for 60 days. So I think this is more palatable. It's more easier, because I don't think anybody can fast for 60 days continuous. It's just impossible. So only one kafara is necessary. So only one kafara is necessary if a person intentionally has broken his fast multiple times in the month of Ramadan. Okay, is it permissible for me to neuter my pet so they can't reproduce? And if they're in pain and suffering from cancer, can I euthanize my pet? Oh man. Okay. In principle, it is permissible to sterilize an animal if it's done for a valid reason. It's beneficial. It prevents a harm. So sterilizing an animal, it could be to stop it from breeding, or it's showing aggressive behavior. Displaying aggressive behavior, or with the intention of fattening it. For example, the way they do it with goats, right? In Pakistan, the best animal to slaughter would be the khassi sheep, right? For those who are from Pakistan, they which mandi is it? I forget the mandi in Karachi. Each year I used to go there. Very famous mandi. I forget the name. Name escapes me. So over there, the best animals to slaughter would be the neutered, the circumcised, not the circumcised, the neutered sheep. So that would be the best animal for slaughter, and the meat, apparently it tastes really good. So if it's for the intention of fattening the animal, or to make the meat more flavorsome, there's nothing wrong with sterilizing the animal, neutering the animal. As far as the second question is concerned, euthanizing the animal, yes, if the animal is in pain, then it is permissible to euthanize the animal. Now, bear in mind that this is only applicable to animals. It doesn't apply to human beings. It does not apply to human beings. So don't go around, becoming Dr. Death or something in the hospital if somebody's in pain, that I have to do my job and euthanize them. And there's so many stories in the papers that doctor felt sorry and just gave some kind of uh, stuck a syringe into his into that person's whatever meds that person was on, and that's it. He just went off, dozed off into a sleep that's going to last forever. So, euthanizing pets, perfectly okay. There's nothing wrong with it. Okay. Making sujood with a turban, is my salah valid? So, first and foremost, understand that when we make sujood, it should be bare forehead, right? The forehead should be bare, and that's when the sujood is valid. If a person does sujood on his turban, so for example, if that person's turban is so low, right? If a person's turban is so low, and it's impeding the forehead from touching the ground, then that's sujood. That prostration is makruh. That prostration is makruh. It would not be permissible. The salat will be valid. The sajda will be valid, but it is abhorrent. One should refrain from this. Try to do sujood on one's forehead. Um, lift up the turban or the topi or whatever a person is wearing, and do sujood specifically on the forehead. Okay. Uh, what are the faraid of ghusl? Faraid of ghusl, very simple. It's washing the entire mouth, rinse the nose to the soft point of the bone, the right where the cartilage ends, and washing the entire body, right? And there should not be a single hair that is unwashed. This is three faraid of ghusl. Very very simple, very easy to remember. Okay. Selling cigarettes on the black market. I don't know how a person can sell cigarettes on the black market. So I really don't know what this question means. I mean, how exactly does a person sell cigarettes on the black market? They're legal. Uh, I mean, cigarettes, you can get them anywhere. As all of these gas stations have cigarettes. I don't know how you can sell cigarettes on the black market. Wallahu alam. I don't know. I don't know the nature of this question. Okay, nikah over a video call. Is it permissible? Okay. Uh, so nikah over a video call. Nikah over a video call. Um, it's there has to be one of the conditions of nikah is that it has to be done in one place. So if the bride is in Australia and the groom is in America somewhere, and they do nikah over Skype or something, that would not be sufficient, because one of the conditions for the validity of nikah is ittihadul majlis, that the majlis and the place of nikah, where the place where the nikah is performed, that has to be one and the same, right? So they have to be together. So if a person is, like, for example, he's sitting in uh, North America, and the wife goes out in space or something, right? And NASA calls the wife that this guy wants to marry you, right? Have you accepted? Right? She can't from space say that, yes, I have accepted. No, it has to be the same time. It has to be the same place. So it doesn't work like that. So that nikah over video, that would not be permissible. There has to be witnesses. There's a lot of components in nikah for the validity of nikah. There's a lot of components, and those need to be observed. Specifically, the witnesses bearing witness to the marriage contract taking place. Right, that has to be there. Okay. Okay, so I know Islam prohibits you for being lesbian, gay, but what should I say when someone asks if Muslims hate them? I know we don't like the act, but how should I explain to someone that Islam prohibits such an act? Valid question. It's a good question. Yes, Islam, it prohibits one from being lesbian and gay. However, having said that, Islam doesn't say that a person can't be attracted to the same gender. This is not what it is. It's possible. And classical jurists, they've talked about this. Classical jurists, they have talked about this. Um, so if a person, as long as a person doesn't act on it, as long as a person doesn't act on it, then that person is going to be rewarded, right? That person is going to be rewarded. I remember in Pakistan, one of the scholars by the name of Maulana Hakim Akhtar said, so someone came to him with inclinations towards the same gender, and he just lost it in front of Maulana Hakim Akhtar Sahib. He passed away. And you would think that the scholar is going to reprimand him or say something that would be hurtful, but no, he hugged him and he said that don't worry about it. Just don't act on these impulses. Don't act on these thoughts, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to reward you. So yes, Islam, it prohibits being lesbian and gay, but Islam doesn't say that you can't have inclinations towards the same gender. The main thing is that we should not act on these impulses. We should not act on whatever we are thinking at that time. It's similar to, for example, if a person wants to, na'udhu billah, commit adultery or something, right? A person has this desire. And one Sahabi went to the Prophet ﷺ and asked Rasulullah very frankly that, I want to commit zina. Give me ijazah. Give me permission to commit zina. So the Prophet ﷺ said that it's haram. This is something that's haram. It's not allowed. And the Sahabi insisted. And the Prophet ﷺ said that, would you like that somebody does this to your mother, to your sister? And he understood at that time. This is when he understood. But the Prophet ﷺ was patient with him. This is the point. The Prophet of Allah was patient with him. So having inclinations towards the same gender, this is a possibility, and there is no accountability for that, but there is accountability if a person acts on this impulse, right? So now, when somebody asks us as Muslims, right, that what does Islam say about homosexuality, right? It's very clear in the Quran that this is something that is prohibited. It is haram. I mean, there's just no way around it. It's haram, and there is a punishment for those who are involved in, or who involve themselves in, homosexual act. But this is only applicable. I mean, it's not like we can become Batman and take the law into our hands, and that we go around and we start taking the law and doing things that we're not supposed to be doing. Islam is not a religion where it advocates that people become like Batman and start dishing out vigilante justice. That's not how it works, and this is not what Islam is about. This is only applicable in a true and authentic Islamic state, and that too, the proof of even proving something like that, it's so elaborate and it's almost impossible. I have not come across anywhere in history where a judgment was issued where the Qadi or the Caliph issued a decree that 2 men, 2 women, they should be put to death because they were caught in a homosexual act, in a homosexual deed. So it's considered a sin. As Muslims, we consider it a sin, and it is prohibited. And this is how we should explain it to people, that we consider it a sin. It's prohibited. This is what my religion tells me. However, if a person is drawn towards the same gender, it isn't as if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to hold him accountable. Rather, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to reward that person. Because why? Because he stopped himself. He prevented himself from engaging in that sin. And this is where the reward is, that when we stop ourselves from doing something that we're not supposed to be doing, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rewards us for that act, inshallah. Okay, let's see. What else do we have over here? Mm, all right. Okay, I think that's all we have for that's all we have for today. Are there any other questions? Any other questions before we break off for today? Let's see. Okay, all right, got another one. Assalamu alaikum, Mufti Sab. How are you? Can you please tell me the hand slaughtered chicken and machine one is halal or not according to all four imams? Okay. Um, Hand slaughtered chicken and machine slaughtered chicken. Obviously, hand slaughtered chicken. This is halal. Machine slaughtered chicken. I mean, this is you know for a halal slaughter, the slaughterman has to be Muslim, and it has to be his action that facilitates the slaughtering. The instrument also that is used, it has to be sharp. The parts of the animal that need to be cut. So these are the condition and the ruling of Bismillah. Unfortunately, these are not found in present day machine slaughter as it is, right? So I would stay away from machine slaughtered chicken because those conditions are not found. I mean, I would ask a question that, let's say, an abattoir where chickens are being slaughtered. It runs on nuclear energy, right? It runs on nuclear energy, and it lasts for 100 years. So the Muslim slaughterman comes, presses a button, and says Bismillah, Bismillah, Allahu Akbar. Presses a button, leaves, and it just keeps on slaughtering chicken for 100 years. Would those chickens all be halal? I mean, that would be my question. I mean, I don't think so. I mean, you're looking at 100 years worth of chickens, and they're just being slaughtered one after the other, one after the other. I mean, I don't think those chickens would be halal, right? Because the act of slaughtering, it has to be done by one's own power, by one's own physical act of taking the knife and putting it over the neck and actually making the motion of severing the vessels. That's a requirement in a valid slaughter. Okay, Dr. Seb, you're asking about organ donation. Organ donation is permissible based on recent research by one of the muftis in England. His name is Mufti Zubair Butt. So he wrote, I believe, 100-page treatise on organ donation, and the conclusion of this treatise was that it is permissible. Organ donation is permissible as long as they don't take out more than what's supposed to be taken out. So this was the conclusion of that. I do have that. I do have that somewhere. But I mean, if you want to read it, I can send it to you. It's about 100 pages long. I do have to find it, but it's probably somewhere on my phone or on my computer somewhere. But if you're interested, I can send you the actual fatwa. It was written by Mufti Zubair Butt. I believe there's an interview online as well where he discusses this at length. So Mufti Zubair Butt, he's a graduate of Darul Uloom Karachi, very competent mufti, and he lives in Bradford, England. So he was interviewed by another very competent scholar by the name of Maulana Mansoor Ali. And in this interview, they discuss at length the whole concept of organ donation, why scholars in the past, they were against it, and why now they consider it to be permissible. So as I said, it's a 100-page fatwa. He sent it to Pakistan for peer review. It was received favorably, I believe, by Mufti Taqi Sab, if I'm correct. But I did go through it, and as I said, the conclusion is that it is permissible. Okay, any other questions? No? Okay. Inshallah, we'll have our tafsir not next week, sorry. We'll have our tafsir tomorrow. And so hopefully I'll see everybody tomorrow in the tafsir class. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.